Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Holy Rivals Show. I'm your co-host, Nathan Balmer Brown. With me is my other co-host, the Wild Ute,
What
and
is
our key
up?
contributor with Moen Show. How you guys doing today?
Doing well. How
Good.
you doing?
Doing okay. It was a lively weekend. I think both Ute and I are a little down. I think Moen's probably a little up. And we can talk about that on the weekend. At the end of the day, we know that we're coming down to the end of the season and we're wrapping things up as far as the college football playoff rankings go. And there was a change today. Washington jumped Florida State, which makes sense because they have honestly had the tougher schedule if you look at their overall schedules. And I think that's really important. Other than that, there's not been a ton of change at the top. The schools that we support have had mixed bag seasons. Now, obviously, Ohio State
Mm-hmm.
is up for it this weekend, right? Ohio State with the game with Michigan. That's the premier matchup in all of college football every year. That rivalry, and we'll preview that a little bit. We want to make sure everybody knows that we're not going to do a show Thursday, and I don't know if we're going to do it on Friday. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a pick 'em show tomorrow night. I'm announcing that now. The Wild Ute might not be there, but we can certainly cover his picks before so that we have those online. I'm not sure how many games we're going to do. It might be 8, it might be 10. There's a lot of rivalry games going on this weekend, so we'll be covering those. And yeah, we'll just sort of see where this goes. Before we get started, I just want to thank everybody for being here. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here at all. Thank you for the people that are return viewers, and then we want to welcome those that are new to the show. If you are new to the show, make sure you do your subscriptions. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit that little button that's on your main page, and I can share that so we can walk through how everybody can become a paying member of the site. Let me bring that page up really quick. I'm going to turn on my sound there. Okay. So if you want to become a paying member of the channel, right here on the main page, the Big 12 Mafia page, you hit the join button. And on that join button, you just hit the different membership levels. Each one of them has a benefit that goes with it. If you get the founder membership, I have a rally towel that I send out to everybody so you can display that in your office, put it in your car or whatever. I don't care what you do with it, but that's what comes with that. So we welcome those that want to become new members of the channel. Where we really have made hay and what we did over this last year was in not during the season. Obviously, we weren't even around during the season. It was the off season that we really grew and became something that was people like to do and like to participate with us on a week to week basis. So things are going to pick up as we go through December with bowl season. We're going to have a little bowl pick'em series that you can participate in. I think we're going to be able to try to work that out. That people that are viewers can participate in that. At the end of the day, what we want is your involvement in everything we do. And that's the most important thing. So before I get started, let's just really quick preview what happened this weekend. Why don't you tell us what happened with Utah and Arizona? They got bushwhacked, huh?
Yeah, I'd rather not talk about it, honestly.
Okay.
No. It's all good. Arizona's a really good football team. Knew it. Didn't like that game at all.
Right.
It's tough going down to Tucson for the Utes. We were on a 6-game winning streak versus those guys, but they totally pounded us. Didn't help that our 3 best defenders decided to sit the game out for really undisclosed reasons. I think that they were just priming for the NFL draft and they shut down the season. So we were playing essentially second string defense in a lot of ways, but everyone deals with this kind of stuff. And we totally got spanked. And, Arizona fans out there can kudos on that game. Fafita is a baller, and it really wasn't close the entire game. I mean, it was a 21 point lead, the first couple minutes of the game, and the game was over. So, yeah, but really, Stephen G pointed it out. Like the big news the next day was Cam Rising's coming back next year, and so the hype machine, the hype train in Utah Nation is just going crazy right now with the team that we thought we're going to have this year coming back next year to to the initial Big 12 season. So it's awesome right now to be a Ute fan. It's so exciting and stuff, and everyone's kind of looking forward now to next season and kind of just saying goodbye to this one.
Any word on Keithy?
No word on Keithy. Keithy is about 50-50 from what the rumor mill, what the smoke would say and stuff. He hasn't made his decision yet. He's in a little bit different situation than Cam Rising. Rising, his NIL contracts are said to be anywhere between $1 and $3 million for the upcoming season, with the figures between 1.5 or 2. Those are kind of loose figures and everything, but he's going to be making some pretty good coin, more than being a backup in the NFL or making his run on a practice squad. Keithy's just not in the same situation though. He's not the quarterback. He's not the face of the Utes or anything, so he wouldn't be getting the NIL money that Rising has access to. So his decision's a little bit more challenging and stuff, and he really wants to make a run to go pro, but that just he hasn't made the final decision yet. I hope he comes back. If he comes back, the team will be even more loaded and everything. But even without Keithy, this is going to be a good squad.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And the next season is going to be fantastic. It's going to be a loaded season with 16 teams. Big 12 is going to be hot, and I think there's a lot to look forward to there. I want to bring this up. Sarge, Utah fan in Florida, says, "Hey guys, I had no idea there was a show on tonight. Did you turn on your notifications, Sarge? Because I sent it out in about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours ago. So if you missed that, that's because your notifications aren't on. If you did see it and you just didn't know we did Tuesdays, during the season we're doing Tuesday nights. During the off season we were doing Mondays for this show. So that's possibly going to change, in January, February. Anyway, we're glad you're here. All right. Tell us in your run-up and your evaluation of Ohio State this weekend, Moen.
Well, Ohio State only really had to play for 2 quarters and a minute. Coming out of the locker room, they scored 14 points in under a minute. That tells you pretty much all you need to know about the defense and the offense. They were clicking.
Okay.
Was not a clean first half. It was 13-0 at halftime. After that, they came back and just shellacked Minnesota. And even when they put their second stringers in, Minnesota couldn't handle it. They did give up a mercy field goal to Minnesota. But highest rated game on the history of the Big Ten Network.
Booyah.
Really?
Booyah.
2 million. Look at
2
it.
million on BTN.
On
Nice.
BTN.
Man,
That's
you
fantastic.
guys.
And just wait till we get into California, Oregon, and Washington next year.
No kidding, right?
It's going to be really good.
You guys are nuts over there. 2 million on BTN.
That is insane.
Blowout.
Considering there's like no advertising for that. It's an off-channel find. You have to really be searching for it. You don't just go across the BTN network. It's like way high in the numbers if you're on a cable or dish provider. So that is remarkable. It tells you the strength of Ohio State football, that you can get 2 million people. I mean, how many Minnesota fans could have possibly watched in that game? 5?
So I told Greg it was Minnesota's draw.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Right here, Cleveland Rocks. Good to see you, Cleveland Rocks. He's one of our paid members. Thank you for being here. He says, wishing you all a blessed and happy Thanksgiving. Really have enjoyed your show this college season. Great work. Thank you so much, Cleveland
Yeah, thank
Rocks.
you. Appreciate it.
All the support that you and all the other paying and also regular subscribers have been for this season has been incredible. And I couldn't ask for anything more. We're going to continue to grow and change and sort of follow with the trends to see if we can stay ahead of some of the news that's out there in college sports. We're not just a football show. We cover all of college football, college sports in general. Everything that goes from NIL to realignment to all the negotiations with media partners. We're going to cover all that. And I appreciate you being here. You've been a loyal member, and I really, really appreciate everything that you have given us. And I hope you have a blessed Thanksgiving as well.
And we're going to keep going, beyond the season here and the bowl season and the off season. You guys, here's the reality of the situation, at least in the Wild Ute household. I made a deal with my wife that I could watch as much college sports, especially football, as I want, but I can't really watch anything else. That's our deal. So I could talk this year round, but I can't watch NBA or anything if I'm going to do this. So I need
Okay.
this. I need this community with you guys here. So we're gonna keep this thing going in the off season.
I really appreciate you've been a great partner, and this has been, one of what we hope is going to be a years long project to continue to grow this community, and it's been absolutely fantastic. So let's get some hellos out there before we get much farther into the show. Conundrum is here, Glenn Lumen is here, and he says the big one that got away. So I was at the BYU Oklahoma game. And first of all, let me just say, Oklahoma, you're really good. Okay. You came in and the fans there were fantastic. I talked with probably 15 or 20 Oklahoma fans at the game, and they were they were so happy that they didn't have to come to Provo very often because they saw how intense the game, the intensity of the stadium was. Next year, I hope to get Ute in the stadium for a game so we can see what that's like. We're in Salt Lake for the BYU Utah game next year. The Holy War's in Salt Lake, but we're going to have to do something next year because it is a unique environment, and they really liked being there. And it's too bad they're leaving the league because I think them and Texas on an annual or biannual basis would be a fantastic opportunity to have them come. But who knows? In the future, they're talking about doing some negotiated games, and I would love to have them do a home. And I want to go to Norman. That's a game I've always wanted a trip I've always wanted to make. So to really quick talk about the game itself, BYU played probably outside of one play their best game of the year. That includes the Cincinnati and Texas Tech games. If they hadn't have called an RPO, and I want to get into whether they should called it or not. A-Rod and I have been at conflict for weeks and weeks and probably years. You can go back. I don't understand why he calls side-to-side plays or gives the opportunity for side-to-side when north-south, Aiden Robbins, if you watch that game, I know you did, Aiden Robbins gashed 3 plays in a row, went for 50 yards, and all of a sudden you're throwing a 30-yard out. It just is inexplicable to me. And A-Rod worked at Utah and they let him go. I don't understand why BYU picked him up, but so I know I'm going to run into interference with BYU fans. There's a lot that are very loyal to the coaches there, but as far as I'm concerned, outside of Kalani Sitake and now Jay Hill, I think everybody else should be on the block because BYU needs to tool up, not stay just mediocre.
I think that there's a lot of BYU fans that feel the same way, Bomber. Like, I mean, I'm an outsider. I talk with BYU fans all the time and stuff. I see their comments, and I think that's the general consensus that Sitake stays, Jay Hill stays, but really the offensive staff might need a change or something different and stuff to kind of add some juice, especially, with looking at recruiting and everything.
Right.
How long can you go, with how things are right now? It kind of looks like it's at that even level and everything to get some juice. I think you might need a change there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Moen, did you have? I know your game was early. Did you happen to catch any of that game?
I did not. I was watching another game.
Yeah,
I
I know.
The highlights.
Okay.
I caught the highlights. It was. I was surprised. BYU played them a lot tougher than I thought they would. I thought Oklahoma was just going to go out there and beat them from pillar to post.
Right.
Was not the case. BYU showed up. I don't know if that's an issue with BYU showed up and Oklahoma didn't, or BYU just is a much better team than they've shown us this season.
Well, let's talk about that. BYU's strength of schedule is 8th in the country right now. Utah's, I believe, is number 1 in the country.
That was ridiculous stuff. Yeah, we throw on these schedules.
So yeah, BYU and Utah here in this sort of middle state in all the country, and they've played the toughest schedules. And so I think BYU is much better than people thought that they were going to be. And next year we got some recruits coming in that are probably going to make them a little better. So it's going to be a gradual process. It's going to take us several years to get to where we want to be, but they did show up against Oklahoma, and I want to tip my hat to all the Oklahoma fans. They showed out. That was probably, except for Utah, the most visitor people I've ever seen in the stadium, and it holds 3, 4, 5,000 people, depending on who the
It was
opponent
loud.
is.
It was loud on TV.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
and you
was
were
it
there with your
really?
dad. Yeah, you were there with your
Yeah.
dad, right?
We were down in the south end zone, the loudest
Nice.
part of the stadium, and yeah, it was loud. It was really loud. My dad kept asking me questions. He has a little hard of hearing. He asked me how, what happened or what happened, here or there, and I was like, just watch the replay film because I can't describe everything that's going on in the game. We had a lot of fun though. It was a great day, and the only thing they didn't do is win the game. So, anyway, we don't have to dwell on that anymore. I just wanted to say, Glenn, yes, it was one that got away, but we got a whole season next year to improve, and we will. The Big Lubbock's in the house. We got B, who I'm not sure. B says, "Good evening, everyone."
What's
Nice
up,
B.
B?
I'm not sure who you are, but good to have you here. Kenneth Evans says, "This is the end." I know. I always get depressed this time of season because I know football is going away, and it really hits me hard. Mr. Monkey says Rock Chalk, so Kansas. Standing out, I think, is what we're trying to do. Is in the Big 12, there's so many teams in the middle. We need some top end talent, and I think next year we're going to get some of that.
Is that a signal that you want to hear the Rock Chalk squawk?
Go ahead.
You got to squawk it out, Moan.
Go ahead, hit that. Stephen G says, Bomber, I have to say BYU is a beautiful stadium and the fans are the nicest fans I've ever experienced. Yeah, we are. I think that's uniform.
Hey, you know what? We need to talk about something. Speaking of
Okay.
that, so on social media, there was some conversation about BYU fans handing out free ice cream to Sooner fans when they were trailing in the football game. I mean, I get hospitality, but is there too much hospitality, Bomber? Is that going too far when you're losing a football game and you're handing out free ice cream?
No, I don't think so.
Depends on the flavor. It depends on the flavor of the ice cream.
It is what BYU is. Kind of goofy, do things different. It's for everybody else, yeah, it might be a little bit weird, but in Provo, and as people have seen as we've traveled the country, no, it isn't. We are what we are. You can like us, make fun of us, do whatever you want, but that's just what you're going to run into. It's different, and a lot of people find it put offing or off-putting. They think it's a little too nice. I've seen comments on Twitter about how BYU's too nice. I don't know what that means. I was raised in a house where there's no such thing as too nice, so I don't know. I don't know how you would knock people going out of their way to be hospitable and look at that as a negative, but some people do. So.
Well, you know what? I'll just give a heads up to any Big 12 fans out there, anyone traveling to the Rice-Eccles Stadium. It would be an amazing experience for you. We'll tailgate in the parking lot together. You'll have a blast. But when you get in that stadium, it's not going to be too nice and stuff. You're going to have to take some shots. That's usually how it goes and everything when you're traveling to opposing stadiums. But yeah, I saw that, so it was pretty unique and everything with the handing out of the ice cream.
Yeah, we've been, I think it's maybe 10 years or so that's been going on. It's been going on a long time. Anyway, Tony Lawson's in the house. David Hackett is here. David Hackett says, hello, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you too, David. Let's see. Kenneth Evans already did. B, I already did. Tony Lawson, I did. Let's see. Kenneth Evans. Let's see. Let me just get down here and make sure I get as many people as I can. Sarge, we've already said hi to you. Good to have you here. Sooner Lemon. I hope you got your rally towel. If you didn't, please let me know. Put it in the message, and I'll send you another one. But I did send it out last week or a week and a half ago, so hopefully you got that. He says, "Good game, Bomber." Yeah, it was a good game. And boy, you guys have a good team. What's the status on Dylan Gabriel? That's what I would ask, because he got hurt, and we didn't ever in the stands. It was never announced that he was out of the game until I noticed that the number was different on the quarterback. So I don't know what happened there. Did they announce it to you on TV?
They didn't announce it on TV, but it just looked like a concussion based on how his head snapped back and hit the ground. It was late second quarter, and he never came back. So I think that he was in a concussion protocol. It didn't. I mean, you never know with these kind of things. It didn't look like massive. So I'd hope that he's back soon. I would have a hard time believing he'd be out, for a bowl game or anything, but he might miss this week.
Hopefully not. I think he's a good quarterback.
Oh, definitely.
He's going to play in the league. It's just a matter of where he gets drafted or he goes free agent. I don't know. Ryan Thomas is here. Good to see you, Ryan. Dang it, man. Were you at the game? If not, you missed a good one. It was almost an all-timer. He says Michigan sucks. That is all.
I agree. Seconded.
Well,
Seconded and carried.
Anything else? Go ahead. If you want to say anything else,
get it
go
out,
ahead.
Moan.
Here, I got something.
Okay.
And they're tearing down Michigan's coveted M-Swap banner. They will meet a dastardly fate here for that.
By the way, they didn't meet a dastardly fate for that.
Okay. All right. It's good to see you, Ryan. Thanks for being here. We'll get down here some more comments. College Football Plus is here. Good to see him, man. He says, "Where's my man Moen's background? The Pantheon. Do you have the Pantheon as a background?
This is not the Pantheon. It's a Pantheon of Ohio.
Okay.
This is the rotunda at Ohio Stadium.
Okay. All right.
Even
Very
if you're
good.
not a huge Ohio State fan, if you ever get a chance to go to Ohio Stadium, you must go there for just the college history involved there. It's one of the most beautiful stadiums on the face of the earth. 100,000+ people rocking out to hang on Sloopy. Oh, gives me chills just thinking about it.
It's an all-time trip. If BYU ever makes it there, I will definitely be. I
Just
will
bring
go out my way to
bring
go
your
down.
wallet for the $9 beers and the $14 pretzels.
Do you sell beer at the stadium over
Oh,
there?
yeah.
Man,
Ute is jealous because Utah
I am
doesn't
jealous.
do that.
Yeah, I told Bomber that. Like Rice Eccles is dry as a bone.
I'm glad. I'm very glad about that. Ryan Thomas, another $1.09 says, mischievous again. Weasel Reens, hail to the cheaters. All right. Boy,
And that's scientifically accurate. Wolverines are weasels.
okay.
Scientifically
All right.
accurate.
Let's see. Go down here some more. Boy, there's a lot of people here tonight.
There's a
I'm
lot of
so
people, a
glad
lot of
to be
comments.
here.
It's hopping.
It
Hey, we're
is
going to
real-
talk about viewership though soon, right?
Yeah,
Are we
yeah,
gonna jump
yeah.
into
I've
that?
got that. I've got that slide. Yeah, I'm just trying to say hi to everybody.
You know,
It's
I've
taken forever.
I've got something in my mind here. You know, over
Okay.
today, I've thought about something. I got to share with everybody here. Some
Okay. All right. Let
some
me get through this.
intel.
Okay. Let me get to this last super chat from Sooner Lemon. He says he's expected to play this week and he had an upper body injury, but BV Brent Venables, the coach, says he's expected to play. So to Dylan Gabriel, tip your hat, and I hope you're able to continue to play this year. You've had a good season, and just continue to do what you're doing, man. Oklahoma is a fantastic organization, and I will continue to be a fan. Always have been. I've never been a fan of Texas, ironically, but Oklahoma for sure. All right, let's go to those viewership numbers. Let me bring that up. And I'm going to let you sort of go off on this, Ute.
You know what? Why don't you speak to the viewership? I know BYU and Oklahoma had a pretty good number and everything. I want to speak to something else, and it gets into the Gonzaga and UConn, to the Big 12 talk, and really specifically about basketball versus football viewership.
Okay.
And how we can view that and everything. Broke down some numbers today. Thought about this quite a bit. I've been thinking about it for a couple weeks. And I actually created a formula here that we can start thinking about b-ball versus football inventory and value and everything. But why don't you speak to the viewership numbers first?
So obviously what we've got here is this is the top. Georgia, Tennessee was number one. It was a CBS game. The BYU game obviously was a 10 a.m. Mountain, which means it was the ESPN headliner at the beginning of the day. And I thought they did pretty well. 2.17 million, that's almost a full 1.5 share. And I think that for an early game, and you think about it, it's a Midwest brand, Oklahoma, and BYU, which people are still getting out of bed at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and don't even imagine that I bet you we missed a bunch of people Pacific Time. I think that was a pretty good number. I wish it was something that we could repeat. In other words, I wish that we could do the repeat game in Oklahoma and see what that would be to a return game. Unfortunately, we're not going to get that now. So I don't have really in-depth data to go on outside of that, except for I was happy with the number. It would have been great if it was like 10 million or something, but everybody knows they're not going to get a number like that. especially with such an early game in the Mountain Time Zone. So I was pretty happy about that. The Michigan game, this one jumped out at me, and I was shocked. I got to admit, I was shocked with the Michigan number. And maybe, Moen, you can tell us why so many people were watching. The only thing I can imagine is there's a lot of people, there's counter programming going on there. People don't want to see them win. And so they're watching them, hoping they're going to lose. Is that kind of what you're thinking there?
That's true, but it was also a very competitive game. It was only a one-score game by the end of it. So, I mean, Maryland played Michigan much tougher. And I think people are wondering now, was Maryland playing up or was Michigan playing down?
Right.
Because usually Michigan and Ohio State will play down that week before the rivalry game to rest people. So I think it's out. I think Maryland played up. I think Michigan played down. But it was at noon on Fox. That's a nationwide broadcast. Louisville was the other noon game. Again, that was Louisville, Miami, two teams that, still pretty high in the rankings. Louisville, anyway. So,
the Fox game, that big noon game, is the best time slot. It's turned
It
into
is.
the best time slot in all of college football.
Absolutely it is. And how amazing is it that the Big 12 is able to get both ESPN and Fox involved in their media deal, right?
Massive. Yeah.
So we're gonna. I mean, that's a huge thing. If the anchor was, say, NBC or CBS, I would think the Big 12 would be in a really bad spot. Really bad spot. But because Fox is the other brand out there, and it's the primo in college football, in my opinion, I think that leads nothing but good things to come with the Big 12. Anything else you want to say about this, Moen, before we get to you?
Yes, look at the Minnesota-Iowa State game.
Minnesota.
2.02 million.
You mean Texas, Iowa State?
No.
Minnesota, Iowa.
I'm talking about the Minnesota-Iowa State game.
Iowa. Oh, I'm sorry.
Ohio State game.
Where's that at?
The Big Ten Network. It's down here.
It's right below BYU.
1.0
right
rating, 2.02 million viewers on Big Ten Network. That is not a nationwide network.
Right.
That is a regional network for most people. So that broke the record for the amount of viewers on Big Ten Network.
What are the averages from week to week on that channel?
Depends on what team is. I've seen teams as low as half a million, all the way up to here 2 million. So, like if it's like a down Michigan State versus Indiana, you might get 500,000 to 1 million. When it's a team like Ohio State or Michigan, it's much, much higher.
Well, then looking at it in comparison, there's a lot of games in there that did pretty well this weekend. Obviously, Washington, Oregon State was the primo game on the West Coast, and it was a great game. If you missed the game, you missed out on an all-timer. It was a fantastic game, and Oregon State, I tell you what, if you're just playing pound for pound, that team will punch you in the face. I wouldn't want to play them in a bowl game. I'll tell you that.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, they will punish your team if they get a month's rest, and hopefully they get a good bowl game. I could see them in a Citrus Bowl or something like that, and just beating up on an SEC team. I could easily, or an ACC team. Could you imagine them playing an ACC team, say Miami, for instance? They would just beat the hell out of them.
Good thing for you guys that the Pac-12 network doesn't report any numbers, because you know that Utah Arizona game probably put up a 2.5 mil or something like that. You know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Seriously, that had to be bad.
Sure.
The Pac-12 network, horrid.
575,000.
Oh gosh, right.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that game was not on national television for folks to watch. It was that bad.
So let's see down here. Where do we find SMU? I just, I like to tease my SMU.
Right up there.
Right there we go.
There's SMU. They broke 200,000.
Look at that 276.
That's pretty good.
A lot of that has to be Memphis, right? I mean,
oh yeah, right. Memphis carrying it. Yeah.
Memphis.
10-1 or whatever they are coming in there and playing SMU. Yeah, I just, boy, the ACC, man, they're going to be awesome next year.
Oh gosh.
Once Florida State leaves, and Who knows who else with them? I just don't even know what to do with that conference, the ACCs. Okay, let's talk basketball. You want to talk
Yeah.
basketball? And I've
So
always been curious in your average 2-hour basketball game. Let's say Duke, North Carolina, primo game. How many people do they get to watch?
2 million,
Okay,
like a little over 2 million for the highest viewed basketball games. Um, I was looking at the basketball ratings. It's hard to find basketball rating information, y'all, but I did some digging. Sports Business Journal provided some information. I also looked up like average football viewership on ESPN. And so my sample here was just looking at 2022 ratings. So only a 1-year sample. It's not multi-year. It's only on one network, and that's on big ESPN, not ESPN2, not
Okay.
ESPNU, not ABC, right? So basketball and football here. So according to 2022 numbers, your average football game on ESPN, your average viewership was 2.2 million.
wow.
And
Okay,
that means on a Thursday game, on Saturday games, when you equal them all together, you're bringing Ohio State into that, a Utah, BYU, everybody. When you're just looking at the whole pool, your average viewership is $2.2 million or 2.2 million viewers per game, okay, on ESPN. Get that stuck in your head for a second. For basketball, this was surprising actually. For basketball, the average viewership for an ESPN broadcasted game was 955,000 viewers. That's actually a lot higher than I
that
thought,
seems very high to me.
right?
That does seem high to me.
955,000 viewers per your normal ESPN, big ESPN game and everything.
Wow.
So I was trying to think about really the value of a UConn or a Gonzaga in a conversation when you're talking about football and basketball and you're talking about decoupling. How much are you worth compared to this?
Right.
Nobody really has talked about this. Nobody's done any research into it. Okay, so this is a formula that I kind of created to see how valuable a game was to a network like ESPN. I wanted to see, okay, for ESPN, how much more valuable is a basketball game versus a football game or a football game versus a basketball game? That was the goal, okay? Just the value, looking at the same network. So what I did was looked at what's the average length of a football game. The average
3.5
length of
hours.
3.5 hours.
All right.
Right. And if you break 3.5 hours down, that's 210 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
210. Get that stuck in your head for a basketball game, 2 hours. That's the
Okay.
average basketball game, 120 minutes. So I created a ratio. I know I'm going to probably confuse people, but I'll get to the point here. So for football, you have 2.2 million viewers per game multiplied by 210 minutes, which is your average length of a football game. And that gets you a number that talks about the potential viewership hours that like a ESPN would be able to dole out to advertisers to make money, right? So like 3.5 hours of watching a game on ESPN and you're averaging 2.2 million viewers, okay?
Okay.
Get that stuck in your head. Did the same thing with basketball, 955,000 viewers multiplied by 120, which is 2 hours to get to a figure of like your total potential viewership hours for advertisers to post information.
Okay.
Still following me? I know it might be a little murky, but I looked at those two numbers, I calculated those two things and put them compared to each other in just a formula, and it spit out basically that a average football game on ESPN was worth 4.03 times more than your average basketball game.
Really?
Yeah.
4 times.
4.03 times your average
Okay.
basketball game. Your average football game is worth that much more. And then there's the caveat and stuff because there's more basketball game inventory than football game too.
Right.
So digging into more of those numbers and everything, get more clarity on kind of what all that means. But I thought that it was kind of interesting, at least to kind of know, from ESPN's standpoint, when they're going to advertisers to make money, they're like, hey, a football game is going to be worth 4 times more than a basketball game on average on their channel.
So that being the case, then around the 15% mark is what a total value for a conference deal, if 32 million roughly for the Big 12, you'd say about 15% of that is basketball.
It would be it'd be a little bit more than 20%. It'd be around 25% actually.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of how it shake out and everything. Just
Okay.
looking at those two metrics alone, there's a lot of different factors that come into play. Obviously, the conferences, the teams, Big 10 viewership is going to be more than like a Big 12 or a PAC, and everything. So there's a lot of different things. But I'm just talking about ballparking it. just on average, just something
But
to stick in your mind.
is that true, Moen? I don't know that Big Ten basketball has more viewers than Big 12 basketball, does it?
Probably not, simply
Yeah, because
because
there's more. It's a football conference.
it's a football conference, it's a
Yeah,
wrestling conference, it's a
that's
hockey
right.
conference,
So I don't know that that's
volleyball.
right. We might have to change that calculation a little bit because I think the Big 12 is selling themselves as both, right?
Hmm.
And so there might be
Yeah,
a value add proposition. You might have to add like a 0.5 or something like that to every. I'm not sure how your math works, but
well,
it seems to me like Big 12 basketball would be worth a little more.
I think that it would just depend. It could change based on a conference or a team too. I mean, there's going to
That's
be
true.
different.
Yeah, that's
There's going to
true.
be different numbers that kind of stew and maybe change that a little bit. But ballpark
Right.
averages, we're talking that, and like just to get stuck in your head. Okay, so here's how to apply that. So if like, I don't know how much Gonzaga plays on ESPN, but Gonzaga would have to play
Yeah, I don't
4
know.
times on ESPN to equate to one football game, the
Right.
equivalent of
Right.
one football
Right.
game, right?
Right.
And like that's Gonzaga's playing a couple times on ESPN. Not in a year. I don't think they're playing 12 times or anything. That would equate to like 3 football games or anything. But it's just it's just some way to get an intuition about like some valuations based on real
Right.
numbers. And again, it's going to change. There's caveats. There's going to be specific examples with a team, a conference, and everything. It's going to change that ratio around given specifics. But in general, 4 times.
That's interesting. We will have to dive into that in the off season because I think that's definitely all of a sudden, and the reason we're talking about Gonzaga again and UConn is because it's come bubbled up again out of the Netherverse in the news that the rumors are that they're still looking at UConn and Gonzaga to join the Big 12. I still the value proposition I think is a stretch. You'd have to play. So we imagine Gonzaga would have to be on ESPN at least once a week for the entire season, right? To make that, they'd have to pay 12.
Yeah.
They'd have to play 15 games to make it worth even half a football season.
Right. And that's kind of how you apply it and stuff. And just to look at, even how to even things out and everything. Gonzaga would have to play
Right.
12 times to equate to, 3 games that Utah brings to ESPN or something to create equal value.
Okay.
And there's always going to be caveats and everything, but just to get that in your head a little bit, that like really it's about 25%.
I really, really think that's interesting. We will have to dive into that. And I find it really interesting that you've had a hard time finding data
It's hard to
on
find
basketball.
b-ball data. It really is
And
hard.
do you think it's on purpose?
I don't think it's on purpose. I just don't think people cared as much as they do now.
Okay.
Like we care now because it's affected realignment, and we know how much
Right.
it's affected realignment. We've talked to Bob Thompson many times and everything. We understand how this thing works and how it's stirred and how money drives everything. And we need to know more about this to see how things shake out and why decisions are made. And this is why, Gonzaga would be an ad or not. And this could matter with, their revenue allocation they get, their, pro rata share of a distribution if they came to the Big 12. This matters and stuff because it's how much value they're driving for the Big
Okay.
12 because it's how much value they're driving for ESPN.
So when we have Bob Thompson back on again, we will
Yeah.
need to bring this up.
For
I
sure.
think it definitely bears probably repeating several times and coming up with a calculation that is as true to form as possible. I think something else, and I don't know how you would measure this, but there's more commercials in a basketball game. They're shorter, but there are more of them.
Hmm.
And so maybe that tweaks it as well. The halftime is what is the halftime shorter in basketball as well? It's 20 minutes in football.
Yeah, it's shorter in basketball.
So that would have to be put into play. I don't know. That
And
will
your
be something.
demographic too, like who's watching your average basketball game versus an average football game? Like
Right.
what are they
That does
looking to
change as
buy?
well.
And that's how much an
Yeah.
advertiser would be willing to consider paying. A lot
Yeah,
of
that's
data
true.
points and everything, but just get that stuck in your head for a bit, just
I
think
like
about
that
that
a
one.
lot. If you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe right now. Follow us on Twitter and then turn on your notifications. That matters a lot to us. Join the conversation in the comments section. People reply to comments to the videos all the time. And become part of the community. Consider become a paying member of the Big 12 Mafia family. You just hit the join button on the main Big 12 Mafia page, and it'll walk you right through whichever subscription model you want to use. and become a paying member. We pay back with our time and data, as you just heard Ute go through. We pay back to you with as much information as we can, so you guys can go out there and make informed decisions on what you guys want to follow. We got another super chat here from Blaze Barstow. He
What's up,
says
Blaze?
$1.99. Hook 'em horns. He says.
Hook 'em
'em
horns.
we don't have a lot of Texas people around here at Hook 'em horns. So Blaze Barstow, we'd love to have you here. I want more Texas people because I need a counterpoint, because we've got a bunch of Oklahomas, and I would love to get some conversations about you guys, especially as you're moving into the SEC.
Mhm.
I'm tracking both of your schools. I want to see how well you guys do, because it'll be a real barometer. If you go into the SEC next year and you're in the top 4 immediately for the entire season, that makes the Big 12 look that much stronger, right? The only way you can do comparable values of how these schools are performing throughout the year is when these schools move to the different conferences and then how well they perform, just like Washington and Oregon and USC. UCLA we throw away, but USC as well. How well they perform in the Big Ten next year will be a marker to show, well, how really good is the measuring stick for Utah, who played Oregon and Washington all the time, and how much better are they or worse than they are in the Big Ten Conference. So that's a lot of stuff going on. We appreciate you being here, though. Tony Lawson says, $5 super chat. He says, Big has led all conferences in basketball attendance since 1997. TV numbers, not so sure. Yeah, obviously we're talking about men's. I'm not informed enough about women's sports to be able to give you viewership numbers.
I would just say this is because it's cheaper to go to a basketball game than it is a football game. And when you're in college, most of those are college kids. It's a blast when you're in college, even if your team's not that good.
Right.
Because you can just go there and get, have a couple beers and shout at the opposing team.
Right.
Fun times.
Along that mark, we're going to be starting to cover basketball as we go through the end of football season. We'll probably begin that coverage. It maybe after the winter tournaments, or maybe in January. But we will start to do some basketball coverage because we know a lot of people care about that. I'm really tracking BYU's progress. They are actually doing really well so far, and their KenPom rating is extremely high. And we'll have to see as they get into the Big 12 season, but they might be as sort of, maybe, I don't want to say bad, but mediocre the football team has been, not in how they've played. I think they've played up this year, but in their record, the basketball team might actually win more than 7 conference games. That's what I currently have them at right now. If they win 10 conference games, they're in the NCAA tournament. So we'll have to see how that goes, but yeah, we'll want to track that. Blaze Barstow is another $1.99 super chat. He says, just letting you conga, the Longhorns are here. Okay, good. We appreciate you being here, Blaze. Consider becoming a paying member. I don't have a Texas paying member yet. You could be the first, and that would be really cool to have you around. Okay, is there anything else you want to talk about when it comes to the viewership numbers?
Yeah, let me see if I can share my screen for folks.
Yeah, please
here.
do. Absolutely.
I haven't done this for a bit, so we'll see if we can work it out here. Okay. All right, so here we go.
You can make it bigger by hitting that last window on the right.
Okay.
If you want to take the whole screen.
Yeah, let's see here. One sec. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see. You can make it the whole window by hitting, down on the control panel where the pictures are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the one on the far right, it says cinema layout. It takes up the whole screen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know, Bomber. We'll have to work at that later.
Okay. All right. That's a user
error. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, the idea, if you can see it and stuff, it actually lays out your average basketball viewership per network.
Okay.
So as mentioned before, ESPN's pulling 955,000 viewers in the 2022 season. CBS, that's Big Ten. So I think Big Ten, yes. I think that was
Yeah,
on Fox and
CBS had
CBS,
that
right? So
contract.
Tony, to answer that question, Tough Tony, is about 1.3. Like they're playing a lot of CBS games. I would bet that the Big Ten viewership would be, over 1 million, probably on a big CBS game. That's not happening every day. It's usually happening on the weekends and everything. But just to get a little idea of what these networks are pulling in on average for basketball viewership is something to look at here.
FS1, that looks great.
The 171, it got a 68,000 on USA Network.
That's crazy. That is
Anyway.
absolutely crazy. All right. Well, we'll have to track that. We'll have to keep following that, and
Yeah.
because I think that's important. And if we could come up with some sort of a formula to say when we talk about rate in general, obviously generalized, but if we say if you put a 1 here, what does it represent over here? That could be kind of cool because realignment's not over, as we all know, and it's only going to be changing as we go forward. Immaculate's in the house. He's watching. His wife wasn't feeling well tonight, and obviously family's most important. But he says the Big Ten are also the champions of being envied and thus compared against. That's true.
Yeah.
The Big Ten is. Go ahead.
I would add one more thing. If you do go to a Big Ten basketball game against a certain team up north, steer wide of their coach. He's been known to sucker punch people. So just steer wide. I'm just saying he does sucker punch.
That's fantastic. Kenneth Evans says BYU looked good against San Diego State. They did look good against San Diego State. Who knows how good San Diego State's going to be by the end of the year. But yeah, they did beat him in Provo. That another really quick note there I saw on Twitter, there was a comment going around about viewership attendance in the new Big 12, if you take out Oklahoma and Texas, what the total attendance numbers are really going to be at, and BYU will be at the top of both of those marks, primarily because they have the biggest stadiums in both sports, in both basketball and football. It's the biggest stadium for both. So I want to make sure that if you've seen that going around on Twitter, there needs to be a little bit of because Utah overperforms. So what are you at, 44 in your football stadium, and yet
53.
you usually get. Is it 53? Okay.
Yeah.
So 53, and there's some SRO in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they're over 100% usually every game.
Right.
They just don't have as big a stadium. So you have to take those numbers kind of a little bit in proportion. Anyway. All right. So you guys done? We're done with the weekend. We're done about talking about viewership numbers.
You need to show the results still.
Oh, I do, don't I?
The pick'em results.
Yes. Okay. So, yeah. So I came back to the pack just a little bit. Let's see here. Add to the stage. Here we go. So I was underwater this week. Primarily that Utah game is the one that put me over 50-50. But I was 3-5. Immaculate was 5-3. He's catching up to me again. Moen was 3-5, and Ute was 3-5. So Immaculate's cheating again. To get ahead, Immaculate has to cheat. We all know it.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at our overall results, I'm 1 game ahead of Immaculate, and Moen is 34-54. We're clapping Moen into next season, and Wild Ute is sitting two games below the Mendoza line. So we have 2 weeks to go, championship week and week 13, which is next week. So once those games are over, then we'll do the final tally, and I'll be number 1. No matter what happens, I guarantee I'll be number 1.
I don't
One
think
way or
so.
the other, I'll make myself number 1. Anyway, all right, very good. Really quick, let's get to this other story that I teased on Twitter earlier. Now, I don't know if I want to play this or not, because if I play it and YouTube flags me, it'll
You'll get
shut the
flagged.
stream
Yeah, if you
down.
play it, for sure.
You think I will?
Yeah.
Why? It's not on YouTube. It's on NBC.
Well, NBC's still on YouTube.
Damn it. All right. Well, I guess we can talk about it.
Just pretend. Imagine it, guys.
Imagine it's moving. Imagine what's his name's lips moving. Here we go. Okay. Basically, what this story is about is the president of the NCAA. What is his name? It's Charlie Baker.
Mm-hmm.
Came out and did a bunch of interviews. The Meet the Press was one of them. And basically, he talked about where the NCAA is in college sports right now and their biggest challenges. And obviously, at the top of that list is NIL. And he's thinking that NIL is getting to a point where they're asking for federal, not state. They want federal mandated rules. And the reason is because it's running out of control. You'd already mentioned it earlier that this last year, we don't know what he made necessarily, but Cam Rising is going to make more than $1 million. It's certainly closer to 2 probably next year. And he didn't play a down of football this year.
Yeah, right.
And you could say, yeah, he's worth $2 million, and to Utah, I'm sure he is. But there's schools way down the pecking list that can't afford any of these type of numbers. Certainly, if you're not in the A4 conferences, which is what we've got now, if you're not in the A4 conferences, there's no way in hell you have the support base to provide enough money to pay NIL in any of those numbers. In fact, if anything, you're probably in the tens of thousands of dollars at most in NIL money that you can pay to a player. So I guess the question for us three, since Immaculate isn't here, is do we think it does take federal control to come in and regulate this, or is it too late? Have we already, has the horse left the burning barn, and now we have to deal in this other world that says it's only the rich going to get richer?
I think that it's not too late yet. I think that Charlie Baker seems to be a very good leader. Like, I mean, he was a governor in Massachusetts. I
He
mean,
was,
this
yes.
guy is legitimate. And just hearing him speak about these matters in this interview, he just seems like he has much more practical and almost a futuristic current look without being archaic about like these type of things like the NCAA's been. He mentioned like, things need to speed up a lot more with investigations and things need to change. And there needs to be more consideration about considering the A4 differently than the rest of the NCAA, with the thousands of schools and Division II and III, et cetera, and everything. And he seems to be pretty progressive about his views, which is really refreshing. And I think there's actually hope that maybe the NCAA could, partner up and be a part of college athletics at the highest level of college football. So I think there's still a chance with him at the helm.
Moen, what were your thoughts? Did you watch the interview?
I did. I think he's walking a tightrope. He wants federal NIL legislation, but there's going to be some conferences that don't want that don't want the federal government involved in it. So you're going to see this power struggle. He's got to make those conferences happy, and walking a tightrope because these conferences can start pulling away at this point. The A4 can start pulling away and say, okay, we don't need the NCAA. We can do our own thing with our own NIL regulations that everybody agrees to abide by without federal oversight. Because like one of the, I believe it was Kennedy from Louisiana said, one of the last things you want is the federal government to get involved and set this system up. Be much better for the college community to do it themselves.
So then we get into the battle of equity.
Yep.
And is it fair, quote unquote fair, for the 4 to say, you know what, we are just going to slough you guys off. And yeah, we'll play your out of conference games. We'll give you that $1.5 million out of conference check so that we can get an auto win and all that fun stuff. But the equity, I believe there's some fair and equity things in the interstate transit and antitrust legislation that would have to be adjusted if you were going to break those things away, because at the end of the day, these schools are all getting federal money. So
Right,
they can't just turn their back on the government and say, we're just going to run this like a club.
Right, but you're assuming that the G5 doesn't come along with the A4.
Well, we've already said, how are you going to get the money for them to stick around?
Well, they're still a G5. I mean, they're still going to have money.
But they're not going to have near the money to compete.
Oh, they're still going to get their college football playoff money. They're still going to have money. Their federal grants. Those teams will still have money. You're probably your Division IIIs. Those ones might fall by the wayside. But I mean, the NCAA, I think we've just seen it more and more that the NCAA has made decisions that the rest of the conferences are not happy with, and they're going to pull away from the NCAA and start doing their own thing.
Yeah, like speaking of equity, I'm concerned about, pulling away, because it's not just the A4 pulling away, it's really the Super 2 pulling away. And I'm concerned with the power struggle of the Super 2 conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, and how they would dictate if there is a pull away and stuff on the rules of the road. And if pay for play happened directly from schools or conferences, and they would have the lion's share of say in those matters and stuff. And I think it would stick a conference like the Big 12 and the ACC behind even more than they are today. So I would like some type of external body like an NCAA still overseeing things, because I do not trust the Big Ten or the SEC to do what's right for the A4 or anybody else. So that's just my own personal thoughts on the matter and everything. I've got more and more concerns seeing with these media distributions with this pay for play model, and if is no salary cap and future paying players and everything. I mean, it just seems like it's just going to be a big money grab, and your Ohio States and Michigans are going to land all the big recruits, and things are going to even get more polar than they are today, to me. And I don't trust the Big Ten or the SEC and their governing bodies that they want to implement to make it so it's more equitable playing field in the playoff, for a Big
Well,
12.
I think you'll have that, but I don't think it'll be with the NCAA. I think it'll be a new organization with new rules. I think the NCAA has just worn out its welcome, especially with that gigantic lawsuit. They're going to want to get away from the NCAA, whether it's now the College Athletic Association of America, the CAA. You just come up with a new organization that oversees everything.
That would answer one of the biggest concerns right now. There's that $1 billion lawsuit out there about the players and all the benefits that they're talking, and that was a suit over the NCAA. That was a suit of the NCAA. You could conceivably, if that's ruled against, if the NCAA loses that, I could see them filing for bankruptcy and expediting this other entity being put together, because they wouldn't be on the hook for the same liabilities. And since the NCAA is the entity that's currently in control of that class of sports and money, I think that there's a lot of opportunity that something could change just because of that one lawsuit. And there's more than one. The big one is the I can't remember who is it, Brown versus I think it's Brown versus USA or NCAA. Anyway, if Immaculate was here, he could correct me on which one it was. But the idea being that the NCAA ceases to exist because it can't afford to pay that amount, and everything is reconstituted in a different body.
Right. And the way the NCAA rules are set up, they keep getting hit with these lawsuits after lawsuits after lawsuits. It might be better off just to tear it down and build something new.
Right. Immaculate saying lawyers that I've asked about this on X, they all seem to think the universities are on the hook too.
They are.
It'll be. I'm not sure about that. I
He's
think that's up
correct.
I think that's up for debate.
Well, you got to keep in mind this is part of Oregon State and Washington State's lawsuit.
I understand, but
Uh,
that's one conference. That doesn't control the rest of the football
no, but
world.
I believe he's accurate that yes, because the schools all empowered the NCAA, shit runs downhill, so it will affect them.
Can you guys do a quick refresher, really, like what this means and why this is happening again? Just like a general overview and stuff, Bomber, about these lawsuits and everything. We're talking about the NCAA getting sued and universities possibly getting sued. What is the reason for that? Just to refresh everybody.
So
On
players
the highest level.
players have been suing the NCAA and also different colleges for money. Right? They've been playing for decades and they've had no medical coverage.
Older
They've had to
players.
they've basically been taken advantage of for all these years. A few years ago, NIL was put in place to help get that started, to help start paying them some things, but there's no balance to it. There's no regulation to who gets what. Even oversight on the money itself is now up for question on who really is the controlling partner for that. So now what they're doing is there's these class action suits. One of them is, who is it? Colgate. What is the one in the Ivy League, Moen?
You would have to ask Immaculate. That is
Yeah, I can't remember which one of the. It's one of
It's
like
Yale, I believe. I think it's
Is it
Yale.
Yale? Okay.
I think it is.
One of the Ivy League schools was sued by their players because they don't get any money from scholarships.
Right.
In the Ivy League, they don't get scholarship money to play sports. It's almost
Mhm.
like you want to come here and play sports, go ahead. But we're Yale. If you want to be here and graduate from here, that's worth more than anything you're going to get from some sort of a scholarship. So they sued, and from everything that I've read and have been told, that lawsuit is not looking good. In other words, the trend is saying they're probably going to lose that. And if that happens, then the cap comes off. Now you got all these other suits. This Brown lawsuit I know is really important because that's the one that is assigning values to insurance, to players that are no longer playing college football, that need to have long-term medical needs
Yep.
that they need to have covered. So that's where all these lawsuits are starting to cascade down.
Mhm.
The overarching lawsuit we were just talking about is the NCAA charge, which is basically the NCAA has been the administrating body for all of college sports, and they're the ones who really have to. It's their charge to get everybody on the same page to be covered and to have these athletes have some sort of protections. And once that lawsuit's finished, whatever happens from that happens. There's questions on whether the schools will be liable. Immaculate, you just heard Moen say that they think they are going to be liable. I don't know. I'm not sure they are or not. But regardless, these lawsuits are all going to blow college sports up. And so the P4 or A4, which is we're saying around here, A4, those organizations might decide they don't want to deal with the rest of college athletics, and they just want to break off football and possibly basketball and do their own thing. And
Really
that
well
would
said. Yeah.
be walking away to have their own club basically, and that's what we're talking about now.
And the liability, the estimated liability, the amount each school is possibly going to have to pay is around $6 to $8 million, correct? Isn't that what the estimates are?
That's right, and that's
At
per
least
school.
per school.
Yeah, per school, and that's an annual charge, and that would be something that there's some most athletic departments run at a deficit. Very few. I think there's only 15 in the entire country that make money. And so for a school like BYU in Utah, is that going to kill them? No, it's not. But it could kill a school like San Diego State.
Are we talking about an annual charge?
Yeah.
It's not just a one-time charge, yeah?
No, because they're recurring costs, right? It's just not a one-time benefit. They're going to have to pay
Right.
these every year. In essence, they're going to have to set up benefits programs for these current and post players that will keep them on the hook for a certain amount of money every year.
Unreal.
Yeah, and it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get any more clear anytime soon. That's why realignment has been such a big deal, because everything is sorting up. Everything is consolidating, as Ute likes to say over and over, consolidating up. It's not going down. It's not going to many, many things. If anything, those many, many things are going away, and it's going to fewer things. And so that's what we're talking about here.
That's why we need to eat you up, ACC, as the Big 12.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the Big 12 wants
Sorry.
to eat the ACC. That's right.
You'll be our meal. You'll keep us healthy.
I very much appreciate that, very much. Anyway, we're going to talk about this more tomorrow. Immaculate is obviously our resident expert on all this stuff. It's stuff he's really interested in. He does tons and tons of research on. So we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. I don't remember if I have a guest tomorrow night, legal analyst. I do have one next week. I'm not going to announce him now, but tomorrow night on our show, we're going to be doing our picks. You might not be here, so Moen's going to pick the games, and then we're going to pick them. You will obviously represent your picks as we get those games out. And if you want your picks to be brought up, make sure that you send them to us. I wanted to make sure that I called out. And where is Jet's picks? Because Jet always sends me his picks from week to week. I got to find them here.
Well, you're looking at that. I mean, the chat's asking questions, really good questions that are pressing questions. about how you just summarize the lawsuits. And Bomber, I've got to say that's the best summarization of really what's going on in terms that everyone can really easily understand. So well done for that. And I think that everybody in this chat is understanding really what's going on. And then Mr. Monkey, he says, hate to be that guy. Why should past athletes get paid? I mean, that's a legitimate question and everything that the courts are going to work out and everything. Moen has a response to that. It's liability and medical, right?
Well, and they continue to use them for promotion. Chris Spielman had to sue Ohio State because they were still using the name, image, and likeness of Chris Spielman as an Ohio State Buckeye in marketing materials, promotional materials. So you do have cases where these, and it's going to be more of the top level athletes, but they're still being used. Chris Carter at Ohio State is still used. So, I mean, some of these guys, they're going to sue because, hey, the same thing with the NCAA game. They were basically using their number and their stat and say, oh, it's not Chris Spielman. It's number, but it's clearly Chris Spielman. So, I mean, there are some athletes who should get paid for their name, image, and likeness if you're going to continue to use them.
There are legacy players.
Yes.
At BYU, you got Steve Young jerseys all over,
Yes.
right? Everybody's wearing a number 8. They're wearing 22 up at the U. I mean, there are some numbers that are just iconic at these organizations and these schools. And honestly, they're famous for a reason, right? They're iconic for a reason. And I think those people should be reimbursed for some of that effort. I mean, they're the ones who went out there and put their necks on the line, even if it was 20 or 30 years ago.
I understand that, but they did sign up, and those were the rules of the road at the time. It's like punishing for the sins of the past.
Well, it's not going to go forever. I mean, the NFL had something similar maybe 15 years ago, where they finally put in a plan to cover people that had gone at least 3 years in the league to be covered with health benefits and some other things that was in their collective bargaining. That I think it was for the history of professional football. But in college, it can't go forever. It's been going over 120 years in some of these universities, so you can't cover everybody. There will be a cutoff.
You know who's completely screwed?
Who?
UNC basketball with Michael Jordan.
That's true.
Michael Jordan's gonna get a payday, and all these old like NBA stars and stuff that like they're selling jerseys for. I mean, it makes sense. You guys summed it up really well again and everything, but like, it's it seems a little bit excessive too. But we'll let the courts opine on that.
I think, and time will tell. That's one thing that we all know, is that over time we will get answers to a lot of these questions. Before I forget, I wanted to get this out. So Casting for Chrome is over there. I got his picks from this last weekend, and Moen, you'll have to check me here. He picked Louisville, BYU, Texas, Zona to beat Utah, Clemson, USC, Kansas, and then obviously Oregon State. How did he do?
Well, he won Louisville. What did he pick for Oklahoma, BYU?
He picked BYU, so he lost that.
He won that.
He won that because of that's right, covered.
Spread. The spread was ungodly.
That's right.
What was the Texas? He won that.
Zona.
Zona. He won that.
Okay. Clemson,
he won that.
Wow. USC.
Lost that.
Yeah, everybody lost USC. Kansas.
He picked Kansas.
Yeah.
Lost that.
And Beavers. We know he lost that.
There was only 2 points in the Beaver game, right?
What did they win by? Utah.
Oregon State was favored by 2.5. So you're right. Washington won. It doesn't matter. He lost that. Right.
So you did what was that, 6-2 or 5-3? That's
I think
that's what we did.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
Par.
Our Webb is here. Good to see you, Our Webb. He says,
Webb?
My Wild Ute friend hasn't heard of CTE with proof of exposure, had a long-term expiration date. That's what it's about.
I understand the medical aspect of it and everything. When we're talking about jersey sales, though, to a lot of these like NBA stars, like, get real. Who's going to get paid on this, guys? Like, it's not going to be some of your average Joe Michael Doliak for the Utah Utes that nobody cares about, right? Like,
Right.
it's going to be your Michael Jordans. It's going to be the Duke players, your Grant Hills and stuff. These guys that had major careers because they're famous. Like, if we're talking about jersey sales and like NIL based stuff, that's what we're talking about. But with medical benefits, CTE, that's no joke. That makes sense. Like, I agree. Like, adding medical benefits for past players. I don't know if the universities are doing that now. Probably not. I don't know for sure. If like Ohio State has a pool of medical funds for prior players, they take care of them. They might. They might not. But if that isn't set up, I totally would support something like that to help a player, suffering through a CTE. But I just like talking about like, giving Steve Young more money or Michael Jordan or something. It just seems excessive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if at Ohio State, if you're injured on the field, yes. But say you end up going to the NFL and getting CT, I mean, it's going to be difficult to prove where
I think what we're
Ohio
talking
State's
about
going to
is,
pick back.
yeah, and I don't think we're talking about the stars here. I think we're talking about the players that was a backup tight end that maybe
Right.
played in 3 games but blew out his knee so bad that he had lost a leg, for instance.
Like
Those
the
those those are
yeah,
the
the
people I would think that would be covered.
yeah, the kid from Rutgers who got
And
paralyzed on the play, LeGrand, I think he would be covered by the university for the rest of his life.
That's what we would like to see. I think most people
Yeah.
want that coverage for these players. We know that they go out and sacrifice, and they're not making a salary per se. So, yeah, I think everybody that has been on this show would ever say, yeah,
right.
we would like to have that coverage for those players, but it's just what does that look like, and how do they do it? It may be that they come up with a deal that's also with the media partners that they build, say a $10 billion in perpetuity sort of, I don't know what you call them, uh, like a trust. I don't know the right legal term, but you
Mm-hmm.
put all the money in one place and then that is administered to all his college football. I don't know, but there has to be something, because if there's anybody that makes the most money off these players, it's the media partners. So as far as I'm concerned, they're the ones who should be paying a lot of that money. It shouldn't necessarily be coming from the schools, because they're not getting as much out of it as, say, an ESPN, a Fox, or a CBS. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Anyway, Kyle Visser says reparations cannot be paid in perpetuity. My first employer paid me $275. I don't know what that means.
I think he's
But
talking about the Spielman thing, but yeah, Spielman
oh,
sued because they put his likeness on a banner for some Honda sponsorship.
okay.
So that was the difference. They were using his name, image, and likeness in
Right.
perpetuity.
Yeah, I don't support. That's why the NCAA football program, the video game put work in, is because the
Mm-hmm.
name, image, and
Yeah.
likeness wasn't around. So we'll have to see. We're a lot of this. This is it. This is the Godfather. Is thank you, Ed O'Bannon.
That's
If it
right.
wasn't for him, none of this would be happening right now. So you had the guts to do it, and that's all there was. We have a comment here from Sergeant Pickles. He says, "We are rapidly approaching a model with professional college players."
We're
We're already
there.
there.
We are
I
Yeah.
think
there.
we are already
Pickles.
there.
And Pickles, now that you're in the Big Ten, welcome to the arms race. You thought it was in the Pac-12, but once we start
Right.
paying players directly in 5 years, it is going to be nutso. To get a
Yep.
4-star recruit, you're going to have to pay him $3 million and have a 3-year contract. Like, seriously, guys, that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So it's going to be nutso.
And I think there needs to be performance things put in those contracts. Yeah, they get whatever the money is, but if
Right?
they don't play, so now all of a sudden we're talking semi-pro football. It's just
Yeah, we've been
insane.
playing semi-pro for a long
It's
time.
insane.
SMU's been playing semi-pro since the 80s.
Forever, right? Yeah, SMU. Our favorite topic here on the show is
Why is it
SMU.
so much fun to make fun of SMU? Jeez.
Because they did it the cheap and easy way. They wrote a
Yeah.
check. And I will always say the reason that they will be looked at forevermore as less than is because they didn't pay the hard way to get in. Everybody else earned their way in. Everybody. Whether it was Minnesota playing football for 120 years in the Big Ten, they earned their way in. SMU had many chances to be part of the group, and they threw it away early on for a couple national championships in the 80s. So I mean, you get what you pay for, in my opinion, and people are going to look at SMU as it's just going to be really hard for them to earn a lot of that respect back. It's going to take maybe 2 decades, and maybe even longer than that.
God
that's-
bless Notre Dame for taking that dirty money.
All right. Anyways, anything else you guys want to talk about before we go?
I'd like just to get some preliminary thoughts on the big game from Moen.
Oh, good.
Especially since like we're going to be tied up for Thanksgiving and everything this weekend. So I know that you're probably going to dive into it deeper and stuff maybe tomorrow, but I would just like to hear too on how you see the game kind of moving. No, you don't need to throw out score predictions or anything, but
I'll give you a score prediction. Ohio State 31, Michigan 17.
Oh,
What?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Oh my goodness.
Travion Henderson is going to have one hell of a game.
Wow,
he is
your
back,
quarterback.
He is hungry. They're going to let him eat. They're going to let him eat. It's going to open up passing lanes. Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't care what anybody says, he's the best college receiver. I understand he's had a subpar quarterback most of the year, but he will be a top 5 pick in the draft. You got Abuka is back. He's healthy. Julian Fleming's actually starting to get his head on his shoulders. It's taken him 4 years, but he's finally getting there. Cade Stover, who I think is the best tight end in college football, next to Brock Bowers. If Brock Bowers wasn't there, he would obviously win the best tight end award. But yeah, and I think
how
our
do you
defense
see Ohio
is
State
legit.
attacking Michigan? Michigan's defense, those weasels are pretty tough, right?
They're Travion Henderson. They're going to run a lot of Travion Henderson. They're going to run a lot of Chip Trainum. They're going to run. They're going to play the Michigan game plan. We're just going to run on you. We'll just keep running on you until you can't stop us. And then when you think you've got us stopped in the run, we're throwing it out.
What do you? David Hackett's got a comment here, Moen. What do you think about Notre Dame? We forgot to talk about that.
Nobody knows how much they're making on their new deal.
I thought it was 60. I thought I saw that on Twitter.
I've heard that rumored, but nobody knows for sure what they're making on their new deal.
If they don't make 60, does that just tell them they need to move to the Big Ten sooner?
No, they're going to stick with the ACC. They're going to stick with the ACC through this contract.
Okay. All right.
That's why they got Stanford and Cal in there.
Okay. All right. Do you think Ohio State's defense can hold up against Michigan, who has been a pretty good offense this year?
Not the last 2 games, they really haven't been great offense.
Well, they play down to their competition.
Right. So I don't know. I think, Ohio State has to worry about the run. J.J. McCarthy, if they can get some pressure on him, he is prone to throw interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need a big game from Jack Sawyer and JTT. But if those guys come around and start putting some pressure on JJ, I know he can scramble. That's why you got Eichenberger. If you leave Eichenberger in there as a spy, run up there and make a tackle if he tries to scramble. Our only weakness is our secondary. Our secondary is our weakness.
I think this year you're going to have 11 million people watch that game. I'm going to predict.
Higher.
Yeah, I think about 15, maybe.
15?
15
Holy
to 17
cow,
million
I was
watch.
wrong.
It's going to be nuts, so really.
Okay, I know a lot of people, it's going to be counter-programming. People are going to be
Yes.
cheering against Michigan, not for OSU.
Or cheering against Ohio State. We get a lot of people that watch.
I think most people is going to be against Michigan just because everybody's leaning against Michigan right now.
Moen, is this like the most, like, it just seems like there's such bad, like obviously bad blood all the time, but like there's just a little bit more with this specific game given the cheating and everything that Michigan's done. I think Josh Pate, when he was talking on his podcast, mentioned it's like a soda, you shake up and open, it just explodes. Like this game just feels like one of those games where things are just going to get out of control.
You're going to see some fights.
Yeah.
I can tell you that right now. You're going to see some fights. You're going to see some unsportsmanlike penalties. It happens every year, but I think this year it's probably, especially if Ohio State gets up on Michigan, they're going to start getting in their head, and Michigan's going to start taking swings.
What's is the playing surface at Michigan, is it turf or is it grass?
I believe it's turf, I think. Yeah, I think they
Okay.
converted to turf. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Because I think that does make a difference what the track is.
Well, I know
I
the
think-
stadium is primarily constructed of toilet paper.
Oh boy,
Man,
I love it. This is going to be great. It's a great weekend.
I can't wait for the game. Yeah.
bunch of, and I would recommend everybody watch Seattle play against San Francisco on Thursday night. You got some Thanksgiving night football. Make sure you watch that game. Hopefully Seattle punches them in the face. That's all I got to say about that. I don't know if we're gonna have a quarterback, but we'll have to see. Anyway, anything else you guys want to say before we sign out of here?
Expect Utah to stump Colorado on Saturday too. I mean, it's going to
Yeah,
go way
that-
under the radar. It's Pac-12 game.
Yeah.
Colorado's so beat up. We knew they were going to be beat up. Man, the Buffs are just tanking. Like
They're
they're just
bad.
on downward
bad.
trajectory. I think the Utes are just going to just run the ball at them all day long. It's going to be cold out here in Salt Lake, so I'm expecting a pretty healthy victory in that football game. So I'm looking forward to getting back on the win trail here.
Is JJ healthy?
He is. Yeah.
Oh,
he'll
good.
play.
Okay. Well, that yeah.
Unless
do
he
you
wants to
think
sit
that-
out for the draft.
What do you think? Well, that's a good concern though, because as you said with Arizona, you have guys that are playing for the draft. That means they're not playing in these games that honestly don't mean anything. Once you're out of the
Mhm.
CFP running, all these games are pretty much once you make a bowl, it's who the hell cares. So, I mean, that is a concern. Do you guys, even with second and third stringers, you should be able to
We
handle
should be able to
Oklahoma-
handle
or,
him pretty easily.
Colorado though.
And speaking of Colorado too, we'll know about Deion Sanders' success tenure in the next 14 days. When the transfer portal window opens the first week of December, the Buff recruiting class stinks right now. They're almost like 70th in the nation right now in the recruiting rankings. They've got like 2 4-star commitments and a few 3-star. They're going all out on transfers. If they don't land transfers during the early signing period, you're in early December, this thing is going to crash so hard for next year and the years after. It's going to tell a lot. So we'll know really where the Buffaloes are moving very soon here. in the
That
Big 12.
victory over TCU was fool's gold. And I think the ironic thing is it was the very first game of the season, and it set an uneven mark. It was never the same after that. Travis Hunter gets hurt, and then the season's over, essentially. I still think that Shedeur might go NFL. He might tell his dad to step off and might just go. I mean, who wants to come back and be on a subpar Colorado team going into a new conference where everybody's gunning for you? I don't.
Mhm.
And I still think there's an outside chance that Deion even leaves. We'll have to see. I don't know.
Does he want to risk being an unsigned rookie? Because I'm telling you right now, there's probably 10 to
Shedeur?
15, there's 10 to 15 quarterbacks in college football that are better
I
than
think there's
Shedeur
some
Sanders.
potential there. I think there's some potential there that people. would
Yeah,
be
so do
willing to bet
I.
on.
I think that he's going to be
He's athletic.
possibly
He can
even a
make.
first-round pick.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
right?
really good, Mo.
Please,
You're
it's
serious,
maybe
Moan?
in the Chicago
Yeah.
Bears, you'd have to be a Chicago Bear level.
No, that's where
management to take
Caleb
him as a
Williams is
first
going.
round.
Caleb Williams is going to Chicago.
I'm glad Caleb Williams is going there. Get
He's
Justin
gonna get
Fields on a
beat
team
up
that can
just-
win.
Yeah, it's not a place
By
to
the
go
way,
to win right now.
CJ Stroud for NFL MVP.
That's not going to happen. But
Well,
he's
I'm
definitely
calling it
rookie
right
of the
now.
year.
It might be
He's
warranted.
rookie of the year,
He is the
Rookie of the
most
year.
valuable player on that team.
but not in the league. It's a league thing, not a team thing. So he'll be rookie of the year. Be happy with that. As quarterback, he's a rookie quarterback. You're not going to win the MVP for the season.
He's going to go on a run in the playoffs and win the MVP.
No, I don't think that's going to happen either. I think the one thing with quarterbacks is you give them one free season. Kyle or Kaepernick is a good example. All the seasons after that first season, everybody knows how to game plan against them. They have a full off season. They know how to stop them. Their sophomore seasons are not near as good as their freshmen.
Nah, you can't
'Cause
game
you don't
plan
know how to
against,
you don't know how to game plan against somebody you've never
can't
seen.
game plan against superstars, and that's what CJ is.
Okay.
I'm all
well,
CJ Stroud now that Joe Burrow went down. Now
Yeah,
that the
that's-
Bengals
that
season is
sucks.
over, I'm all Houston and CJ Stroud.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be talking some NFL as we get here into the bowl season. It'll be fun. Talk some playoff games. Anyway. All right. Anything else before we
Hey,
go? That's good
throw it
stuff.
out tonight. The chat was killing it tonight. Thank you all for jumping in. And if we don't talk to you, tomorrow we'll be on. But have a happy Thanksgiving and everything. And again, kudos for stepping out and stuff. It's been a lot of fun tonight.
Absolutely a great time. Thanks for being here, Moen. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Anytime.
I want to thank everybody for being here and watching the show on a Tuesday night. We're wrapping this up. Tomorrow will be our Pick'em show because we aren't going to be doing anything on Thanksgiving. I might do just an ad hoc show on Friday. Depends how good the games are on Friday afternoon. But you might watch for that on your notifications. Other than that, make sure you subscribe, follow us all on Twitter, turn on your notifications on Twitter and on YouTube. And other than that, everybody stay out of trouble. Have a good night, and we'll say peace out. See
Go
ya.
Utes.